Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Art of Engineering. Now, I just got my ACMA renewal for my license, which means that I have been back in the hobby for 12 months. So this is a bit of an anniversary video. Now, this year-long journey into ham radio was preceded by a 30-year absence from the hobby. Got my novice back in 1983, and in about 1986 got my AOCP, and shortly after that went to Maritime College and spent some time at sea. And so I decided I didn't want to play with radios in my time off because I was doing that as my career. Well, 30 years later, I was enrolled in a full-time degree at the University of Technology and Mechatronics, and I was very, very interested in technology again, and got onto Peter Parker's website, his YouTube channel, and looked at his homebrew adventures, and I just thought, no, I've got to get back into the hobby. So the engineering degree has taken a bit of a back burner. And that's why this YouTube channel is called The Art of Engineering, because it started as a diary of me and my time as a mature age student, but it's morphed into a ham radio channel. And it is going to be technology as well. And I plan to do some resources for high school students as well. So it's going to be a bit of a mishmash. But for all the ham stuff, there is a playlist of ham radio, and that is below. So all the stuff you see in this video today, click on the playlist and you'll be able to find it, because every single thing that I talk about today that's happened over the last 12 months is stuff that I've explored on my channel and brought you along for the adventure.
So when I started this journey, this room that we are in presently was just the art studio. It had no technical gear, and so we started very, very simple. So the first thing we started with was our mooncake transmitter. Now this transmitter started out just as an ugly built board, and I actually made my first QSO with Peter Parker on this 450 milliwatt transmitter, and we managed to listen on SDR, which is online SDR radio, software defined radios, and we completed a QSO. And I also had this transmitter on SDRs as far away as 1100 kilometers, so it was working very well. But since then, there's videos below for all of these excursions into technology. I decided to add a little bit more grunt and make it 5 watts. Well, actually, we ended up with about 3.5 watts. And as soon as I finished that 3.5 watt modification, I managed to do a QSO fully homebrew with Helen in Ballarat. So using this very, very simple CW transmitter, I was able to complete a QSO. And also, when I first had it as a 450 milliwatt transmitter, I wanted to do a completely homebrew station. Homebrew transmitter, homebrew Morse key, and homebrew receiver. And this is the chocolate box receiver. It's in an old chocolate box that my grandmother left me, and as you can see in there, ugly build, and it's a direct conversion. My first QSO was with Adrian, VK2AOE I think it is, and he has an amazing antenna farm, broadcast quality antennas on 160 meters and 80 meters, and he managed to work me about 100 kilometers away. But since putting 3.5 watts into this, I was able to work an 800 kilometer QSO. So you can see, very simple stuff can get you a very long way.
We're at that point in the video again where I'd like you to reach down, hit the subscribe button, maybe the like button, maybe the dislike button, and the bell notification. Back to the video.
Now, when we started building QRP transmitters, we realized we were going to need a dummy load. So I got an old money box and stacked up some resistors. Not a really well designed dummy load, but for the 3.5 meg transmitter I was working with at the time, did the job. So we've used that to provide power dissipation for transmitters that we've been building. Sometime after that successful homebrew transmission, I managed to get myself an HK703 high mount key online. This came from Japan, and it's a beautiful key, very well balanced, just love it. And so that was the first key that I purchased. Having unfortunately sold the one that I did have when I was a novice in 1983, And then another high mount came up on a website on a marble base. Beautiful. I used this on the boat anchor, and I'll show you that in a second, but couldn't resist that. The transceiver that I next went with was OzQRP, and the first one I built was the 80 meter rig, and that was closely followed by the 40 meter rig. So I have an 80 and 40 meter duo here, direct conversion transceivers that give me 5 watts of CW and 5 watts of double sideband. And I've completed a lot of QSOs on those radios, and I really love them. Shortly after starting the journey back into radio, we decided to build ourselves an L-match. I don't use that a lot because I've tried to make my antennas resonant on the CW portion of the band. It does work, and it was a fun project to build. Now, as the antenna farm started to grow, I found myself dealing with a lot of leads and wondering where they all went. So what I did was, I'll just get this meter out of the way. I got myself a meter. I needed a meter anyway to test transmitters and find out output powers and everything else. So that was another acquisition, the AV1000. I'm really happy with that. But we did an antenna organizer, and it's basically labeled with antennas on this side and the various rigs on this side. So when I want to plug in an antenna and start operating, all I need to do is, using the meter as a hub, plug the antenna in the bottom on the antenna inlet on the power VSWR meter, and the rig in the top here, and away we go. I've even got one for the ATU should I need to match up on a band that's not resonant on the antennas that I've got. And this is my trusty boat anchor, the TS520 Kenwood, and it's a hybrid rig. It's got valve finals, and that's something that I really love about this radio. It doesn't have the CW filter in it, but I've built myself an audio filter for it that works quite well. And I've done some QSOs on this. I don't like to operate on rigs that I haven't built myself. I just don't get the same amount of pleasure out of it. But occasionally I fire this up because of the nostalgia of the valves that are in it. And having been a ship's radio officer a long time ago, tuning plate, load and drive is just a really lovely thing to be doing. It's a bit of a trip down memory lane. And you'll all have seen this device here. It's an audio filter, and it's for CW, a video in the playlist below. On my return to amateur radio, I was just fascinated by the new modes that had appeared. Whisper, FT8, JS8, and the possibilities that were presented by these new modes. And looking on the QRP Labs site, I saw this marvel, the QDX transceiver. It's the size of a, to be politically incorrect, a packet of cigarettes, and it puts out 5 watts, and with this little box and a supply, an antenna and a computer, you have a station that you can work DX on. So I was really excited by the possibilities presented by this kit, so I had to have one. I'll show you it up close. And here is the kit up close. It's like $100 or something. It is so cheap. So people that say they can't get on the air once they get their license, you know, you're $150 away from being able to operate, provided you have a laptop or some sort of tablet. Most people do have that stuff around, so literally, you know, second-hand laptop, $100 for this, $200, let's say $50 worth of wire to build a simple antenna, you're on the air. So there's no reason not to be operating and getting out there. And then you can slowly expand your station like I have. Over the last 12 months, I could have gone out and bought a $3,000 or $4,000 radio, or even a $1,500 radio. Instead of that, I bought lots of kits, and I used the money to experiment with antennas and experiment with kits and home brewing as well. And I just found that a better option for me, and certainly a better option to learn more about the technology that's involved. The QDX Digimodes transceiver from QRP Labs, Hans Summers, I salute you. You are the god of QRP as far as I'm concerned. This is my AirSpy Discovery, and it's an SDR radio. There's a little dongle there on the side of the cabinet here. It's literally that size. It's tiny, and I use this as my reference receiver. And last but not leastly, very early in the piece, I got this DC switch mode power supply. It is really, really noisy, so I have used the filtering circuit that Drew Diamond has in one of the volumes of his projects for the Radio Amateur, which I've also done a review of, playlist below. And this is Shack Audio. Now, a lot of people criticize this project. I'm using a stereo speaker and a car amplifier. They said it's not right for amateur radio, it hasn't got the right audio qualities, etc, etc. Compared to the speakers from my little QRP kits, it works well. I'm very happy with it. When I want to use it, I've got a switch up here that I can switch it in. When I don't want it, I switch it out.
So we've seen what's inside the shack. Now let's go outside and just have a look at the antenna farm and the things that have happened outside, because I've had a lot of fun playing outside as well and building some monstrosities of antennas. And I'm so lucky. Beautiful elderly ladies on both sides. Haven't had a problem with the antennas. In fact, they've been very encouraging. They've been very fascinated to know I'm still sending Morse code as well. So it's probably got me on side. But we'll go outside and have a look at the antennas. It is a drab old day in Sydney. And looking up here, we have the Haverford squid pole. I think it's a 9-meter pole strapped to the chimney. And that is an inverted V half-wave end-fed antenna. And that is going up here into that tower over there. And you can see on that tower there is an un-un. And that was originally a QRP un-un, but we've turned that into a 100-watt plus un-un. And there's a video on the construction of that as well. And then over here, we have our vertical L antenna. And that was attacked the other day by some really crazy cockatoos, sulfur-crested cockatoos. And they were having the time of their lives playing on that. I'll just show you a little snippet of the video of them trying to destroy this thing. They're actually trying to turn it into a loop antenna. And that is for 14 megahertz, 20 meter band. And as you can see up the top there, there's a little trap and a little tail, and that gets me up onto the 40 meter band as well. And this antenna performs really, really well on that band. I've worked DX on it, and it gets out really nicely, and it's omnidirectional, which is also good. Sometimes the inverted V is better. Sometimes I get more luck on the vertical, depending on orientation, direction of the other station. And that there is what I call my prepper antenna. It's a flower pot antenna for 2 meters. And I don't transmit on 2 meters at the moment because I've got a Baofeng, and I'm strongly suspicious that it's putting out massive amounts of spurious emissions. So we will be having a look at that in a future video. So that is the antenna farm. Now we built this little support here as well. It's only a small block, as you can see, very modest, 430 square meters. But where there's a will, there's a way, especially with wire antennas. So don't give up on the idea of an outside antenna. Be a little bit clever. Vertical antennas, definitely a go-to item because they take up way less space and they only need one support. So I hope you've enjoyed that little show and tell, the little excursion into the shack and what's happened over the last 12 months. I'm sure there's people out there that get a lot more done in 12 months than I have. And that's part and parcel of trying to juggle a degree and work. And also because I'm very, very lazy. And I spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos and making some videos as well. Anyway, let me know in the comments section below what you think of the shack. They can be positive or negative comments. I'm happy to hear them all. And if you've got a shack that you'd like to show, take a video of it, and I'd be really interested to see what you've got, because I just really enjoy seeing how people set their shacks up. I think it's really, really interesting, the things that people prioritize, the things that they're interested in, because everybody has different expectations of the equipment they have and different things that they want to achieve in this hobby. And that's what's fantastic about the hobby, the fact that there is so many wonderful and different things happening. It's all about diversity. I know I'm sounding a little bit woke now, but on the ham bands, this is definitely going to work if we all get along with each other and we all respect each other's modes of operation. We all respect what we want to achieve on the bands, and we all share the spectrum, because that's what it's all about. Keeping the hobby alive and just having a great old time being hams.